Hey friends, it's Rana, and today we're gonna count every single book I own but I haven't read yet, i.e., my current physical TBR pile. I recently finished my Zero TBR challenge in October. I started this reading challenge last year. It is a year-long reading challenge where I wanted, or the main goal of it was, to decrease the number of physical books I haven't read from the number I started with to zero. When I started the challenge, I had 46 books on my physical TBR, and when I finished the challenge, I had 6 books only. But after the book buying ban finished, and after I finished also the Zero TBR challenge, I acquired a lot of books in 2 months because these 2 challenges and book buying ban I completed or finished in September/October, and in these 2 months I bought so many books. I will now show you my TBR pile according to genre, and at the end of the video I'm gonna tell you what books I am most excited to read and at the top of my priority list. Let's start with fantasy. The first 2 books I have, there are 2 books from the 6 that remained out of the 46 I started the Zero TBR challenge with, and they are Rhythm of 4 by Brandon Sanderson, Part 1 and Part 2. I very recently finished Oathbringer Part 2 after struggling with it for a year now, and I like to take a break between each Stormlight Archive book and the other. I won't take a long break like the last one, I took like a year, but now I think I'm gonna read these in like February, March, like that, before the 5th book is released. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna finish it on time before the 5th book is out, but I'm gonna try my best. I heard many people say that Rhythm of War is far better than Oathbringer, so I have some hope for it. The next fantasy book we have is the first book in a trilogy. It is The Shadow of the Gods by Johnny Gwynne. I've been eyeing this book for a couple of years now. I love that it is Norse-inspired, full of dragons, and that alone sold me. And when I saw it in the International Book Fair, I immediately snatched it, and I believe I have some time to read this first and second books before the third is out, because this trilogy is not complete yet as far as I know. Next we have a book that I didn't know where to put, so I put it in the fantasy section. It is Battle Royale by Kushun Takami. This book, I heard many amazing things about it. It was published in the 90s, I believe, a Japanese translated book. People say or claim that it is the Hunger Games before the Hunger Games was a thing. A group of students put in an area and they have to battle each other to death until one is remaining alive standing. A little bit similar to the Hunger Games, but not really. I'll judge for myself when I read it. Then we have a middle grade fantasy book called The Witches by Roald Dahl. I don't know much about it, but I bought it because I really want to read it and start reading Roald Dahl and to see the movie, because the movie seems quite interesting. The next genre we have is classics. I have a small pile of classics that I want to read, and let's start with this one. It is called The Murder at the Vicarage by Agatha Christie. I would like to read more Agatha Christie. I read 3 books by her. They were all average in my opinion, but I enjoyed them when I read them. None of them were 5 stars, but I enjoy reading them. That's why I'm gonna give her another chance. Listen to me, giving Agatha Christie, a legend, another chance. Then we have The Selected Poems of Emily Dickinson. I studied some of her poetry at university, and I really loved them. I loved her style, her subject matter that she tackles in her poetry. Most of them are dark subjects like death, and I enjoyed that. I like her rhythm in poetry. I really enjoyed them. That's why I bought her selected poems. Then we have 2 Shakespeare books. The first one, A Midsummer Night's Dream and King Lear. I also studied Shakespeare at university. We only studied Macbeth, and I really enjoyed it and loved these editions because there are a lot of notes that make the text more clear and understandable to me. That's why I bought these 2 in this edition. The last book we have of this genre is A Belkin Introduction to Classical Literature by Richard Jenkins. This is probably the oldest book on my physical TBR now after I finished my zero TBR challenge because I don't feel like reading it. I bought it in my senior year in university to make a research paper on it, and I didn't. So it is still unread on my shelves. Now, for the genre that I own the most number of books on my physical TBR is nonfiction. And the first book we have is Have a Little Faith by Mitch Albom. I believe this book is a memoir written by Mitch Albom of his mentor or something like that after his death. He is 82 years old and he wanted to write something about him after learning about his life. Then we have another memoir called The Girl from Aleppo by Nujeen Mustafa and Christina Lam. It is a memoir about this girl, Nujeen. She is a Syrian girl who escaped from Syria during the recent war from Aleppo. She is disabled, and in this book she talks about the struggle she faced during her escape from the war. Then we have a book I failed to read during my Zero TBR challenge, and it is Robin by Dave Itzgoff. It has been on so many TBRs videos on my channel, and I always fail to read it because I know I'm gonna be devastated by it and it will destroy me, but I really want to read it. I just can't force myself to do it. It will happen sooner or later, I promise. Another memoir we have is Do No Harm by Henry March, a memoir about Henry March, who is a brain surgeon, and it talks about his life and his profession, and I really want to read it. It sounds very interesting to me, and I love reading about medical nonfiction books. This one and the two other books I'm gonna mention now are books that I had on my Nonfiction November TBR list, and I failed to read them. The other fail is Longitude by Dava Sobel. This one also was on my Nonfiction November TBR, and it is so short. I don't know why I didn't get around to read it, but I didn't. But it sounds really interesting. Also, as I said in my TBR video of last month, a scientific book about sailors and how this gentleman discovered how to measure longitude and helped so many sailors and whatever. The last book I failed to read in Nonfiction November is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. The main reason why I didn't read it is because after I made my TBR video, I heard some negative things about him that recently happened, and people said that this book became outdated or something like that. So it discouraged me a little bit from reading it. I'm gonna read it eventually, but I didn't in November. Another medical nonfiction book is Into the Magic Shop by James R. Doty. This one is a neurosurgeon's quest to discover the mysteries of the brain and the secrets of the heart. You can see that we have a theme here. I love medical nonfiction books, and this is one of them that I really want to read. I don't know why I always struggle describing nonfiction books. I always do. The next book we have is Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. I don't know much about this book. It talks about politics/economics of America, or as the cover says, a great insight into Trump and Brexit. So, yeah. Last nonfiction book we have is Korea from Rags to Riches, a nonfiction book about the history of Korea from 1950 to 2010. It is one of the 6 books I failed to read in my Zero TBR challenge, and I don't believe I'm gonna read it anytime soon, or not at least this year. The next genre we have is also another genre that I have quite a few books on it, and it is historical fiction/literary fiction books. The first book we have is A Terrible Kindness by Joe Browning Rowe. This book was a total cover buy because I love the design of this book. I mentioned that before, but let me show you. At the front we have the main character when he was young, then we have him at the back when he is grown up. I know it is very silly to buy a book solely for the cover design, but I really enjoyed it, and the color is beautiful and the synopsis sounds good, so why not? The next book we have is A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery. It is a historical fiction book set in the 1970s India, following multiple characters, and it talks about love, self-discovery, and friendship. And a lot of people praise this book a lot in the historical fiction community, so I have it. The next book is the first book in a historical fiction series, and I never read or owned a historical fiction series, and this is gonna be my first. It is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferranti. I don't know anything about this book aside from that it has friendship, love, family, and it is historical. So I read it, I bought it, and it also has many praise in the historical fiction community. And I'm a historical fiction girly, so I have to read what is popular. Another historical fiction we have is Atonement by Ian McQueen. I do not know anything about this book. It is a historical fiction book turned into a movie. I believe I saw the movie when I was a little bit younger, but I remember absolutely nothing about it. So here we are. I know, I might be frustrating to you a little bit, but I don't like knowing a lot of things about the books I own and haven't read. I like to discover the plot while reading the books, not before. The next book we have is the most recent purchase of mine from all these books, and I bought it last week. It is As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katouf, a literary fiction book set in the recent Syrian war, and it talks about our main character. She is Muslim studying pharmacy, I believe, in Syria when the war happened, and it talks about the war, the struggles of leaving the country and the war behind. Many people give this book a high rating. All of them, I heard that they cried reading this book, and I can't wait to read it and cry too. Also, look at this beautiful cover. I love it. The next book we have, I bought it from a book sale. I'd never heard of it. I just read the title and just said, why not? Let's see what it's about. And it has nothing online about this book on Goodreads. And it is The Last Migration by Jad El-Hadji. I don't know what this book is about, but I bought it anyway. The next book, I just found out that it is actually not literary fiction book, it is a memoir. And it is The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. I don't know why I thought it is a literary fiction book. It says Memoirs of a Girlhood Among Ghosts, and it is winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for Nonfiction. It talks about the author growing up Chinese American in California. So yeah, it will be added to the nonfiction pile. The next three books we have here are all literary fiction books translated from Japanese. And the first one we have The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiru Arikawa. You know, I am a cat lady, and this cover sold me immediately. I love reading cat books, Japanese cat books, and this one, it seems like it is the best one out there. I read a few, and most people praise and love this one the most. It is also another tearjerker, but we will see if gonna make me cry or not. Another sad Japanese book. I don't know why I love sad Japanese books, but it is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This author has a tragic story. He committed suicide and ended his life. And a lot of people say that this book is like, it is fiction, but it is like semi-realistic, and it is kinda based on his life and his struggles living as a human being. And as a fellow depressed, struggling person myself, I bought this book to read. The last book we have in this genre is Lonely Castle on the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. This book, I searched for it all over the Man International Book Fair, and it was sold out. And I was really sad because I couldn't find it. Then a few weeks later, I went to this independent small bookstore that I always love to visit, where they sell fantasy, manga, and Japanese books. And immediately I saw it there and I gasped because I really want to read this book. Let me read you the synopsis of this book because it is so interesting. In a neighborhood in Tokyo, 7 young people wake up to find their bedroom mirrors shining. Placing their palms on the surface, they are pulled through into a wondrous castle where they encounter not only each other, but also their taskmaster, a bossy young girl in a mask named Wolf Queen. Though they don't know it yet, they all have one thing in common. Eager to uncover the secrets of the castle while keeping their own, their time here will not be without glitches. For a start, each day they must leave by 5 o'clock or face a terrifying penalty. They must all hunt for a key that will grant only one wish. They must tell no one about their experience. I don't know why, but this book sounds like my next favorite book ever, and I hope it doesn't disappoint. Even one of my booktube friends, Anya, she made a book review about this book recently, and she said that she enjoyed it a lot, and I trust her taste in books. So I am looking forward to this book. Then we have one book in one genre. I don't have any other books in this genre, and it is crime, thriller, mystery books called Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. It is the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I read the first book last year on audiobook, didn't enjoy it a lot. It was promising, and I think the audiobook made my experience worse. So I'm gonna reread the first book physically, then read the second book. Next, we have 4 books in Arabic, and the first 2 are by the same author, Firas al-Sawah. The first book is Ar-Rahman wal-Shaytan, and the second book is Al-Qasas al-Qur'ani wa Mutawaziyatuhu al-Tawratiyya. Both of these books talks about religion, mythology, and whatever. And I really love this author's books. I have read previously 3 books by him, made 2 review videos of 2 of these books. He has this long series of books talking about religions and mythology in the Middle East or Levant area, and I really enjoy them. I learn a lot of things when reading his books, so I have these 2. But as far as I know, his books aren't translated to English. The next Arabic book I have is a novel called بينما ينام العالم by Suzanne Abdelhawa, a novel about Palestine, and it is actually translated in English, or I think it was originally published in English, then translated to Arabic, and the English title is Mornings in Jenin. It is a multi-generational historical fiction talking about one family in Palestine, starting from the 1948 and till now, how the occupation destroyed their lives and everything that happened after that. I can't wait to read it, especially after the recent events. And coincidentally enough, the last Arabic book I have on my TBR is also a historical fiction book talking about the Palestinian issue, and it is زمن الخيول البيضاء by Ibrahim Nasrallah. I believe it was translated into English, and the title is The Time of White Horses. It is the second book in a series, but each book you can read separately from each other. They can stand alone as a separate novels, but I bought this one, the second one in the series, because it sounds the most interesting to me. I also have another 3 books that I am currently reading. 2 of them I have been reading for months, but let's not talk about that. The first book I have been reading for months, I believe over 6 months, and it is Al-Rahiq al-Makhtoum by Safiya Rahman Babar Kafuri. It is a biography book about our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I started reading it, enjoying it, but then I stopped to take a break from it, and I haven't picked it up again. I must pick it up again and complete it because it is a great book. I'm just lazy. The other book that I'm too lazy to keep reading is Metamorphosis by Ovid. This one, I believe I started 2-3 months ago, and I'm only like 13 pages in. I don't know. It is interesting. It is fun. I love the style of the poetry in this translation, but I am too lazy to pick it up and read it. I'm not in the mood for it. And the third book I'm currently reading is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I started it in Nonfiction November, and I'm 135 pages in, and I'm loving it. I'm really learning a lot of things reading this book and enjoying it. But again, I am too lazy for this book right now and not in the mood for it. I can't make myself read anything these days aside from manga. I don't know why, but I'm gonna keep trying to get back to these 3 books because I really need to finish them. So let me quickly count how many books are there. We have 37 books. I can't believe I bought over 30 books in the last 2 months. I just need to stop buying more books and read these already. Now, let's see what my, let's say, my top 5 books I am really excited to read, and they are at the top of my priority list: Battle Royale, Lonely Castle in the Mirror, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, Into the Magic Shop, and finally زمن الخيول البيضاء. So these are the 5 books I am most excited to read, and you will probably see me reading in the next 2 months, January and February. Of course, I'm gonna pick up other books from these according to my mood, but these are the most I am really excited to read. So for funsies, let's see what books I'm the least excited to read and I will probably not read anytime soon. Korea From Rags to Riches, Hillbilly Elegy, The Last Migration, and A Bilkin Introduction to Classical Literature. So these are at the bottom of my priority list right now. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to see my future videos and I will see you next time. Bye!